Week, senior government officials and civil society representatives from over 30 African countries are gathered in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, to participate in the Pan-African Learning Symposium on Violence Prevention, hosted by the African Partnership to End Violence Against Children. Its aim is to kickstart action to end violence against children, but participants know that they are faced with an undeniable trend. Despite the gradual introduction over previous decades of better laws and policies, Africa still has some of the biggest or highest rates of violence against children in the world. In Namibia, the Desk for Social Development of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in the Republic of Namibia, in partnership with the Youth Desk of the Council of Churches in Namibia, will be convening a symposium on prevention of violence against children in Namibia towards concrete action by churches and civil society organizations. To share some information on the symposium taking place tomorrow is Uhuru Dempers, the Director for the Desk for Social Development of the ELCRN. A very good evening to you, Mr. Dempers, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening, and thank you for having me, Swain.
Well, what would you say is the main objective of the symposium?
Yes, the symposium is necessitated by two developments. One is the forum that is taking place in Addis Ababa that you have alluded to, which is looking at the continental picture of what is happening to children all over the continent. And the picture is quite bleak. The situation is worsening for children, especially in terms of violence. The second reason why we have this symposium is that in 2019, 2020, the Ministry of Gender Equality, Poverty Eradication and Social Welfare conducted a comprehensive study on the violence against children in Namibia. And that study has very shocking indications of how much violence is happening. For example, boys up to more than 45% and girls, 40% of them experience the violence in their childhood. The home, the school, the society at large is not safe for our children. So despite the different attempts and interventions, it seems as if the situation of children, especially with regards to violence, is worsening. And therefore, we've felt it's important for churches and civil society to come together and analyze this report from the ministry, but also look at what is happening on the continent and agree on concrete action steps to prevent violence against children. So we are not going to just have a talk shop, but a very concrete recommendations and action plans are going to come up what the churches and civil society will do to reduce violence against children.
How do gatherings of this nature complement government efforts in combating violence against children?
Yes, we will have a official from the Ministry of Gender Equality, Poverty Eradication and Social Welfare to brief us on government activities, in particular how government intends to respond to this report, because so far we've really been held back by COVID-19 not to interrogate this report and really look at plans of action of how to respond to it. We will also have a representative from UNICEF, which will talk about what the UN agencies are doing. We also have different pastors from different churches and civil society activists that are already doing work in this area that will come and talk to us about what interventions are ongoing, what are the challenges, what are the best practices, and what more can be done to intensify this. So it's not just churches and civil society meeting. We are already meeting with other stakeholders to really look at what is it that they are doing, what platforms are there, what resources are available, so that we can jointly, as Namibians, as different stakeholders, take action to really address these shameful incidents of violence against children.
Now, despite various interventions by stakeholders, we still see a rise in cases of violence against children. Why do you think this is the case?
I think we are too tolerant to the perpetrators of violence. I think sometimes we get these gruesome headlines in the newspapers, and you get this and war and just a shock reaction. But after that, we don't address this. There are these demonstrations around courts when these cases are happening and so on, but there is no concrete action taking place in schools, in churches, in community platforms to address this particular issue. So I think also we need to look at, for example, if minors are involved in sexual abuse, say a teacher or a police officer or someone has raped a minor, the society doesn't really get up and condemn and follow through to make sure that those perpetrators are punished and that they are made examples, and hopefully this will be a deterrent for other perpetrators. We've been talking about creating a list or to blacklist people that are sexual abusers and so on. But with some issues we just talk and there's not much action. Sentencing also needs to be looked at so that we can really increase sentencing, but also rehabilitation. Also, children themselves are perpetrators of violence in some instances, and we need to look at making prisons really rehabilitations and not just punishment centers. So I think we have tolerated too much this violence, and it's time that we put a stop to it and take action against perpetrators and also address the consequences of violence, the poverty, the hunger, all those issues we also need to address in order to stop violence, because they also are contributing factors to violence.
Right. Now, to conclude, how can Namibians from all walks of life play their part in this battle?
But I think it has to start at family, at households. I think as families, we just need to be vigilant about possible threats that our, especially children, are confronting. Parents need to have regular conversations with their children to ask them whether they are okay, whether there are no threats. Sometimes they are afraid to talk, and they need to be assisted to talk. We also need schools and parents needs to work together. What is very painful is that people that are supposed to protect children sometimes are the perpetrators, and others in society. Even if you are a neighbor, even if you are a schoolmate in a school, you need to look at, is your classmate not being bullied? Is your friend okay? Even at public places, we need to be looking out for each other, talk to each other, help each other, become each other's buddies, so that we can really detect this earlier on and can prevent violence and not just be managing violence against children. I think prevention is better, because once this violence happens, it has a long-term effect on these children when they grow up, and therefore prevention is urgent and it's needed. And that's why we are meeting tomorrow as churches and civil society to come up with concrete plans to help in the fight to prevent violence against children.
Thank you, Mr. Dempers, and we wish you all well in your deliberations.
Thank you so much.
That is Uhuru Dempers, Director, Desk for Social Development of ELCRN, ending our